Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We did a story yesterday about Rishi Sunak promising to allow over 100 licenses for oil exploration in the North Sea. Basically, slapping in the face Humza Yousaf and the Scottish Greens, who are determined for some strange reason to destroy Scotland's oil industry. They seem to think it'll make a difference. Well, they think that because they're very, very stupid. Whereas Rishi Sunak has said it is not only vital, but it is of national security. We need to be energy secure rather than reliant on others. Just look at Germany, for example, to see how bad that can be. And so Humza Yousaf has had to respond to that. And his response has been absolutely appalling. A lot of people have said it was madness for his reaction to be as it is. And a lot of people are questioning why the SNP, who, if they want independence, will absolutely require the Scottish oil industry in order to fund whatever they do, is so determined to destroy it. Is it because he knows he's got to say these things, otherwise the Greens will walk? Because he hasn't got the balls to tell them to go screw themselves. Well, we'll have a look at this, see what he said. His reaction was stupid, but then what do you expect? He's a very stupid man. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf slammed for madness reaction to oil and gas licenses. And of course he has this problem. He's saying one thing and he says something else and the two don't match. Except the very next line. The SNP leader called an all-out ban on more drilling a Margaret Thatcher-type disaster. In other words, he's saying, we can't have a total ban. We can't have a total ban. And yet that's what he's called for previously. He says, but now some licenses are entirely consistent with net zero are a bad idea too. So he's saying we've got to keep the Greens happy, so we don't want to ban. So we want to ban drilling. Then he's agreeing with the Just Stop Oil, and then he says we don't want to be drilling in Rosemount. But now he's saying that an all-out ban is madness and is wrong. So what does he want? Oil or not oil? Not sure. And then they have a net zero policy thing that they say, we've got this, and this will really help with the net zero. And we'll license that and it helps with the net zero because we're doing this. And he says, well, that's mad and bad too. Does the man understand anything? No, it's obviously he doesn't. The trouble is, and it is a major problem for him, is that he is incredibly stupid. And life is hard when you are as stupid as Humza Yousaf. I mean, literally an imbecile. He utterly is. I mean, just give him a big yellow brick, a big Lego brick to suck on in his mouth and let the dribble run down it. Put a little funny hat on him. Sit him in the corner and say, you sit there, Humza, and let the adults in the room talk. Because that's his level, isn't it? Give him a few crayons, but don't give him the purple ones. He keeps eating them. Anyway, Humza Yousaf's reaction to the news that the UK government will be awarding at least 100 new drilling licences in the North Sea has been branded madness. The First Minister settled any speculation about the position of the future of the oil and gas industry in the North East, stating that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is willing to recklessly gamble the future of our planet for cheap political gain. This is obvious this man has no concept whatsoever. He backed up his point with the reference to the record hot July heat waves. What's that got to do with anything? Can you prove that is global warming? Global warming is a climatic thing, not a temperature thing, not a weather thing. There is a difference. And if you had half a brain cell, you'd know that. Also, since we still, and for the foreseeable future always will, need oil, not just for burning or putting in cars or, and things like that, but you do need it for other things like clothing, plastics, glasses, agriculture, lubricants. There's 30,000, I've said it before, there's 30,000 items, there's 30,000 reasons for having oil. Driving your car is one. Okay? So what are you going to do instead of oil then? How are you going to make catheters for people in hospital? How are you going to make certain medications? No? Okay. How are you going to deal with agricultural problems that actually require oil for the production of certain materials and certain chemical processes? How are you going to deal with that? You've got all these nice trains. You're saying they're great for the environment. They need oil. How are you building them without oil? How are you actually lubricating them without oil? It almost sounds as though Humza Yousaf hasn't got a fucking clue. And so he says, well, we'll close all our oil down. Well, obviously, we'll still need oil. He says, but what we'll do is we'll put it on boats and then travel it halfway across the world. So then we've got oil. And we'll still use the same amount of oil, of course. But it's going to come from a lot further away. And so obviously it'll be worse for the environment because of all the transport costs. But because we're not using our oil, we'll look better. You're still using oil, you numpty. Now, the American policy was always, let's always use Arab oil. See, the Americans were clever. They kept their oil pumping, slow, low, keep it going, just to keep the industry going, and then bought in loads and loads of Arab oil. And then when the Arabs put the prices up, they upped their production, and it screwed the Arabs. And that was what all kind of led to many problems in the early 70s and again at the end of the 90s. And so you have all these things. Oil is needed. There is no way around it. But this man doesn't understand global economics. This man doesn't understand shoelaces. That's why he wears slip-ons, because laces are hard too. The man is a moron. Anyway, during his visit to Aberdeenshire to announce the £20 billion of funding for carbon capture, utilisation and storage, CCUS, project, including Acorn in St Fergus, which incidentally, what's her name? Another tangent time, isn't it? Nicola Sturgeon, when hearing about Acorn at St Fergus, said, oh, it's a terrible idea, blah, blah, blah. It's going to cost this, it's going to cost that, it's not going to work. What she was doing was saying is, I wish I'd thought of that. Because it turns out that actually it's a really good idea. But. She slated it because it was Westminster doing it and not her doing it. And everyone was raving about this brilliant idea. And she hated it because it wasn't hers. Anyway, she made all these claims. Every single one of them was wrong. Every single one. Because like Humza Yousaf, she too is incredibly stupid. But she's stupid and vain. Whereas he's just plain stupid. Anyway, division over the future of the North Sea industry has seen the SNP Greens vilified for compromising energy security and jobs, with Mr Yousaf delaying his now clear public opposition to more drilling. I think they meant displaying. Anyway, earlier in the year, he called out UK Labour's flat opposition to any future drilling for lacking nuance. We need oil. We're going to need oil for the next 1,000 years, or until someone can come up with a viable alternative. Can't think of any reason why anyone would want to stop drilling oil. There is no reason for it. Certainly, we're going to still see peak people in about 80 years. After that, the population crashes, like massive crash of population, to the point where it will be a major problem for the world. But at that point, we'll be obviously using a lot fewer resources, and things will get back to normal. But hey. The Tory leader says his announcement is entirely consistent with reaching net zero by 2050, even though we all know net zero is a lie. But Mr Yousaf is still unhappy. Well, of course he is. He's in the SNP. He's miserable all the time. You have to be miserable to join it. Scottish Conservative Shadow Secretary for Net Zero, Energy and Transport Douglas Lumsden, MSP, told the Scottish Express, Humza Yousaf has confirmed again to communities across the North East that the SNP, like Labour, would abandon them by blocking future oil and gas projects, basically turning the northeast of Scotland third world, destroying jobs, destroying communities, and basically meaning that there was no future for the children up there. He said that's economic and environmental madness because it would force us to import more expensive oil and gas with a far greater carbon footprint. Said that. The Prime Minister's sensible approach keeps us firmly on track to meet our net zero targets while protecting skilled northeast jobs and the UK's energy security. It is madness to give up security and put your energy supply in the hands of someone else. If this country was wise, and if I was running this country, I tell you now, I'd be building 30 nuclear power stations. Absolutely would. 30 of them. I'd have one in every county, maybe. More. Who knows? More than 30. I would build so many nuclear power stations so that we were reliant entirely on nuclear power for electricity. I would still retain gas for backup in case anything happened. I would still retain coal because you never know. Just keep one coal-fired station burning, one mine open because it's there. Certainly I'd be fracking and I would be putting cheap gas into people's homes so they could heat with cheap, safe gas, which you can just up the hydrogen level in and reduce the actual gas burning on. And there you go. You've got a virtually limitless supply and you're not reliant upon a foreign country to supply you. Germany, I'm looking at you. And so you've got that. And the other thing I'd do, of course, is I'd keep steelworks open. I'd keep at least 2 steelworks open. One for mass production, one for specialised steel. Because you do not want to go into any kind of conflict with the inability to build warships because you have to buy foreign steel. If you've got your own steel supply, you can build as many warships as you like. It is madness to give up national security for political ends. National security should be the primary goal of every government. And national security in every aspect. Energy, supply of materials, and food as far as possible. They need to get onto it. Anyway, I'm going to stop there because I've been ranting on a bit, so I'll come up and we'll round off the video. So it becomes clear that Humza Yousaf is very much anti-oil and gas. He basically wants to make the northeast a wilderness, destroy all the jobs, destroy all the economy up there by abandoning oil because apparently it's evil and bad and we can live without it or something. I don't know. But he is quite happy, of course, to spend our money buying it in from a foreign country for unknown reasons. Because we're not going to use any less oil. We're still going to use a lot of it. But rather, we're going to have to pay for others to use, which is weird. But anyway, that's his bright idea. And so I think it's quite clear that the people in the North East Scotland shan't be voting for SNP Green next time. Do you know, when I say SNP Green, it's becoming a bit like Sinn Féin IRA, isn't it? For quite the same reasons as well, I suspect. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I shall finish there. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, and please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's not long now, and you can vote him out. Bye.